SCP-106 is one of the most mysterious SCPs featured in Containment Breach. He's some old war veteran who became one with the void, thinks Newton's third law is for chumps, and wants to show everyone his brand new renovated penthouse. By force. Not only can he walk through walls, he can disappear, and even fly! He's so much more unique than the other guys. As he is the biggest menace in the early game of Containment Breach, getting to know 106 is very important in order to ensure your survival in the facility. So, allow me to help with that by explaining everything that I know about his behavior. How he spawns, how he chases, what various room events do with him, and how his pocket dimension works shall all be covered in this month's episode of SCP Containment Breach-EX. Apologies ahead of time if it's hard to see 106 throughout this video. I tried what I could to make him more visible without changing his texture, but it may not work well enough for everyone's screens, especially when wireframe mode is turned on. Also, as a quick reminder, this video is covering version 1.3.12 primarily, though 106 is basically unchanged from how he is in 1.3.11. With all that said and done, let's say and do the analysis. Like all NPCs, SCP-106 has a state value. But unlike most NPCs, except 173 funnily enough, this value does not track what behavior 106 is currently doing. Sort of. Instead, 106 uses it as his spawn timer. This timer will constantly count down behind the scenes, and once it hits 0, 106 will emerge from the floor directly underneath the player and give chase. Upon starting a new game, his spawn timer is set to a random time between 12 to 17 minutes on 1-minute intervals, which is then converted into game ticks, of which there are 70 in 1 second. After his chase, if 106 was just zapped by a Tesla gate, the spawn timer is reset to a range of 10 to 13 minutes on 1-minute intervals. If he instead gave up the chase or was despawned by SCP-1499, the Russian gas mask, or SCP-860, the blue key to the forest, the spawn timer is reset to somewhere between 5.24 to 6.42 minutes. These numbers are messier because this timer reset sets it to game ticks directly, as opposed to actual minutes, which are then converted. This also means that the timer can be set to any tick within this range, instead of specifically 1-minute intervals. A minor thing, but it's there. If you've escaped the pocket dimension into either the storage room or 106's chamber, the spawn timer is set to about 2.3 minutes. If you were given the early escape into the tunnel room, it'll be set to 3.6 seconds, making 106 re-emerge almost instantly. When 106 is recontained, his spawn timer is set to -11, which is what causes him to instantly chase you should you release him. Finally, disabling 106 with commands sets the timer to 47 minutes, so even if he's re-enabled, he's not gonna appear for a long time. While these times are supposedly the true length of time it'll take for the timer to count down to 0, the truth is that they aren't very consistent, because 106's spawn timer will not count down if the player is inside certain rooms. These are the SCP-1499 Dimension, SCP-860-1, SCP-049, the Plague Doctor's Chamber, and any room where disabled decals is set to true. That list includes the room with the intro sequence, most SCP containment chambers, gas catwalks, and various other notable rooms. While inside these rooms, 106's spawn timer will be paused, which prevents him from spawning inside of them. It will not prevent him from following you into them, however. Anyway, once the spawn timer hits 0, 106 will start to emerge. The timer is paused while he's emerging, but once the chase starts, it will continue to count down into the negatives, though only if 106 doesn't have line of sight of the player. When it has counted down for 43 seconds, 106 will now have a chance to give up the chase on every frame, which becomes a guarantee after 50 seconds. Apparently, he's only supposed to give up chase if you're facing away from him and he's further than 5 meters from you, but this condition doesn't seem to be checked at all for some reason. 106 has no problem giving up the chase right in front of you, just as long as he technically doesn't see you. One last note for the pre-chase timer is that it will count down twice as fast on aggressive NPCs mode, so take all the times I listed earlier and cut them in half to get his spawn times on that mode. That pretty much covers the spawn timer, so now let's get into his actual behavior for emerging and chasing. For emerging, there's only a couple of interesting tidbits. First of all, 106 is not actually changing position during the emerge, that's just an animation. Second of all, during the emerging process, this variable, should play, is set to 66. To explain what this means, it's time for a side tangent about how Containment Breach plays background music. On startup, an array is created containing each of the game's music tracks, with each one given an index value. When should play is set to one of these index values, the function updateMusic, which is called every frame, takes notice, and will fade the currently playing track before starting the new one. There are 25 music tracks stored in this array, which means that 66 isn't any of them. So what happens is that the game just doesn't play any background music while 106 is emerging. This is done to create a moment of ominous silence before the chase begins. And once it does, as long as the player is not in the Gate A ending zone, should play is set to 10, which is 106's chase theme, aka the ending of Bump in the Night by Kevin MacLeod. Speaking of the chase, let's get to that now. First up, we check if 106 can see the player. Like with 173, this makes sure that 106 and the player have an unbroken line of sight between their collision boxes. 106 also cannot see the player if they are further than 8 meters from him. For reference, the distance between these corridors is 1 meter. If 106 can see the player, and the player is looking at 106, award the achievement for encountering him, and then start the same kind of camera zoom and light blur effect that 173 causes, increasing in intensity the closer 106 gets to the player. If it's been longer than 1 minute since 106 was last viewed in this way, cause a stronger camera zoom and play this sound. Speaking of sound effects, each frame, 106 has a 1 in 500 chance of playing any of these 3 decay sounds, and while he's doing the walk animation, any of these 3 footstep sounds will play in time to his steps. Another subject I want to cover here briefly is 106's distant glowing eyes. This is a separate entity bound to 106 that uses this glowing eye texture and is set to be floating slightly in front of 106's face. As the player moves far enough from 106, it'll fade into view. The distance the player has to be from 106 to make the eyes appear depends on how thick the view distance fog is and the current light level, which can change if triggered by various things in the game, so I can't give a concrete number here. You might have noticed that these eyes tend to be detached from 106 himself whenever he's emerging, and as mentioned before, that's because 106's rising from the floor is just an animation. His actual entity is standing completely still in that position. Because the eyes attach themselves to the entity and not the model mid-animation, they will appear to float above his head. Now for 106's actual movement. First of all, his chasing speed is slightly increased if other difficulty factors is set to normal or hard. Second of all, it may surprise you to find out that 106 actually makes use of pathfinding in order to navigate to the player. But he only does so if he can't currently see them, among other things. Containment Breach's pathfinding algorithm is quite confusing to read, but the long and short of it is that the NPC will trace a path to a given target using the waypoints scattered throughout the facility. If a path is successfully found, then all of the waypoints along the path are given to the NPC, and what happens from there depends on the NPC in question. For 106, he will move towards each waypoint along the path, until he gets within 0.2 meters of them. Then he'll target the next waypoint and go there, so on and so forth. Additionally, if 106 finds himself above or below his target waypoint, he will float down or up over time to match its Y position. Gravity be damned.
Screw gravity.
106 will calculate a new path to the player every 10 seconds, which is likely done to prevent him from calculating a new path every frame and tanking performance. The pathfinding system is very far from perfect. The most common quirk that I see is when 106 turns and walks the other direction upon exiting his line of sight. This happens because the game erroneously assigns the waypoint behind him as a part of his path. So when he starts following a path, he believes he has to go back toward that waypoint before he can continue. Once he reaches it, he'll turn and head back in your direction. Though, one time I had him just walk away into a wall and never return until he teleported. Not sure what happened there. Now, 106's pathfinding is only run if all of the following isn't true. 106 sees the player, there is no available path to the player is further than 25 meters from 106, or the player is inside the pocket dimension. If any of these are true, then 106 will just head directly towards the player instead. In this case, 106 will not float up or down to match the player's Y position, unless the player is more than 40 meters away somehow, or the player is inside the pocket dimension. Here you can see 106 hovering above me while he's seeing me. Then, when I break line of sight, he begins to pathfind and will properly lower himself down towards the waypoints along his path, finally matching my height. Yeah, this guy is weird. With the help of wireframe mode, I was able to spot some odd moments where 106 temporarily loses his path to me, only to suddenly start following one again, presumably due to the 10-second refresh timer. While all of this pathfinding jank is certainly odd and does result in some buggy moments, I actually think it enhances 106's gimmick of being an unpredictable chaser. You never quite know what he's going to do at any time. Then there's 106's teleport ability. During the chase, if you're further than 10 meters from 106 and you're not looking in his direction, 106 will teleport somewhere directly behind you, along with playing his laugh sound and one of these 3 wall decay sounds. Once he's teleported, he'll then have a cooldown timer before he's allowed to teleport again. With other difficulty factors set to easy, this timer is 10 seconds. On normal, it's 5 seconds, and on hard, it's 3.33 seconds. Once the cooldown runs out, 106 can teleport once again the next time those conditions are met. Finally, if 106 is within 0.8 meters of the player, his speed will begin accelerating and eventually he'll play his grab animation. Once the animation finishes, the player is successfully captured by 106. Fun fact, the sound that plays when 106 catches you is actually 2 separate sound effects that are played simultaneously. From here, if the player is inside the pocket dimension, then they'll just be killed with this death message. Otherwise, the game will play the death animation of falling on the floor using this special timer called Fall Timer, but the player is not actually killed. Instead, the player will be sent to the pocket dimension after 3 seconds. More info on this later. If no target is activated during 106's chase, 106 will still pathfind and move towards the player, but upon getting within 0.8 meters, he has no idea what to do and just slides around them awkwardly with no animation. That's basically 106's main behavior, but like 173, there are plenty of room events that feature or interact with this dude, and he can also scare the nine-tailed fox, so let's see how all of that works. Firstly, you probably know that 106 can be taken to a Tesla gate in order to stun him and get him off your back for a little while. The room event Room 2 Tesla will check if 106 is in chase phase, then check his distance from the Tesla gate activator. Once he's close enough, the usual Tesla gate event plays, and 106's spawn timer is restarted, forcing him to give up the chase and go idle. 106 is also, hilariously, sent plummeting into the endless void beneath the facility upon being shocked. This does not normally happen when 106 gives up the chase, so I have no idea why they chose to do it this way here. These corridors can have the event Room 2 Pipes 106, where upon the player's entry, 106 is set to idle and told to walk through the hallway perpendicularly. He'll stop in the middle and turn to one of the 2 doors, and if the player is within 4 meters of him while he's facing them, this sound will play and 106 will immediately give chase. Interestingly, this event does not check for 106 chasing the player, which means the event can occur mid-chase. Also, if you manage to stay behind 106 while he looks around, he will never see you and thus never start the chase. In my opinion, this makes for a much more fun way to deal with this event. The event will only run once, whether or not 106 saw you, and it is guaranteed to appear on one of the first 4 instances of this room. But it'll be the only one. There is no chance of any more. A similar room event called Tunnel 106 can appear in the round metal corridors, and this event is freaking weird. When the player gets within 5 meters of the center of the room, it'll be primed to activate, but it will only actually do so if the player then goes within 3 meters of the center, or a 1 in 7,000 chance run per frame succeeds. If the player were to back up to further than 8 meters away from the center when it's primed, the event is removed from the room, essentially canceling it. But if the event properly activates, 106 will pop out from the ceiling, then be teleported 3 meters below the floor of the room and be pushed back up until he's at the player's Y level. Then the event will be removed from the room. Oh yeah, and 106 is also set to immediately give chase. If 106 is already chasing the player when the event is triggered, then the event can still activate as long as 106 is further than 5 meters from the player and they aren't looking at him. This event has a 7% chance of being assigned to each instance of this tunnel room, or a 17% chance on aggressive NPCs mode. Next is SCP-895, the Coffin's Chamber, which can have either the room event Coffin or Coffin 106, the latter of which being much more common. Both of these events are actually the same, but Coffin 106 comes with the extra effect of spawning 106 when the player comes within 1.5 meters of 895. It works exactly how you think. If 106 is not currently chasing the player, place him in front of 895 and force him to emerge. While this room is always assigned an event, it has a 1 in 5 chance of being assigned Coffin instead of Coffin 106 on map generation, which will skip over this whole block of code and prevent 106 from being involved at all. Then there's Endroom 106, where 106 captures this poor janitor looking around for help. If 106 is chasing the player when they approach this room, the event is actually deleted outright. Otherwise, the janitor is spawned and awaits the player's approach. Upon entering the room, the sequence plays, and if the player is still within 2.5 meters of the room's center for about 3 seconds afterwards, 106 will be forced to emerge and give chase to the player. If you run back out of the room immediately after the sequence ends, you'll be safe. This event is guaranteed to be assigned to the first or second instance of this room. You're most likely to find this room type in the entrance zone due to how the map generation works. Returning from a previous video is Room 2 Pit 106, which will spawn a very subtle 106 down in this door as long as he's not currently chasing the player. He will not make any sounds or give chase or anything while down there, he just looks back and forth. After 12 seconds pass, he'll disappear upon the player's next blink. This timer used to be frame rate dependent in 1.3.11, but the recently released 1.3.12 now makes it run at a consistent time. It's also worth noting that when most of these events use 106 for something, they make him idle for as long as they need him, which prevents his spawn timer from counting down. This event has a 7% chance of being assigned to each instance of this room, which is increased to a 17% chance on aggressive NPCs mode for some reason. Perhaps 106 was originally going to attack the player as a part of the event. Next, of course I can't forget one of 106's most famous appearances. Upon entering the maintenance tunnels, controlled by an elaborate event called Room 2 Tunnel, always assigned on every map, 106 is forced to emerge right outside of the elevator the player took down here. Or rather, up here. This will only occur the first time the player goes here. Any future visits to the maintenance tunnels will not spawn 106. Since 106 takes so long to emerge, you could always just take the elevator right back down, in case you'd rather run from 106 in the main facility. However, unless you're on aggressive NPCs mode, the maintenance tunnels are mostly free of other enemies, so it's actually safer to evade 106 up here. Down here, whatever. Here's a fun one I learned about recently. This office hallway has the event Room 2 Poffices 2 that will open Dr. L's office automatically when enough time passes. But the event will also cause 106's spawn timer to drain 3 times as fast as usual while you're standing inside the office. A few people in the past have noted seeing 106 appear when standing in this particular room for long enough, and that would be why. If you've never seen this happen before, like me, then that's most likely because you've recontained 106 earlier in the game. Speaking of which, the room event attached to 106's chamber, Room 106, controls the levers and the process of containing 106. There's not much to say really, it works exactly as you'd think it would. The main thing I can point out is that from the moment 106 begins appearing in his chamber to attack the lure subject, you have 10 seconds to turn the magnets on before you fail to recontain him. You also only get one chance to do it, so don't waste it. Finally, there's 106 Victim and 106 Sinkhole, a couple of events which are related to 106, but they don't make any use of his actual entity. The most interesting thing to say is how this victim will not be dropped if 106 has been recontained, but it still drops if 106 is currently chasing you. Oh yeah, there's also 106 showing up at Gate A if you haven't recontained him. Not much to say here, he ignores the player, walks out onto the big bridge, and gets fried. That about covers it for room events, aside from one very big one I'll talk about soon. Before that, I want to note real quick that the Nine-Tailed Fox will run away from 106 should they ever cross paths. And that's all that really happens. 106 pays no mind to them, and the NTF themselves don't have any other behaviors beyond that. I could have sworn that a wiki page I read back in the day said the NTF could recontain 106 if they happened upon his chamber. But they cannot. There's no code for it or any voice lines of them confirming it, like I also assumed there was. Anyway, the NTF running from 106 can be helpful as a distraction so they don't shoot you, but sometimes one of them ignores 106 and shoots at me anyway, so it's far from a foolproof plan. Still, it may have saved someone's key to run somewhere. Now, for one last thing. Even though I said earlier that 106 pays no mind to the NTF, this video by the Batesy and Battleforge appears to show 106 chasing an NTF soldier across the catwalk of the cafeteria.
Really?
Yeah, he actually sprinted for it.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, and 106 is chasing him.
What? Dude.
No way, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's ignoring him and he's gone for him.
However, 106 is not actually chasing the NTF here. He's still trying to reach the player. This is merely a quirk with the game's pathfinding. Standing behind this cubicle will cause 106 to make his way to and out of that door, even if he started on the bottom level. Clearly, the find path function is far from flawless. Either way, this is probably the first time I've seen a bug in this game successfully disguise itself as a feature. Okay, now that 106 himself has been thoroughly covered, let's take the analysis to his house. SCP-106's pocket dimension is located a ways out from the bottom left corner of the facility. Whenever the player gets caught by 106, steps too far into the puddle in the 106 sinkhole event, or rolls a 1 in 5 chance upon using a strange bottle, they will be taken to the starting area of the pocket dimension. If brought here by the first two methods of entry, the player will also take 0.5 damage to their injuries when they are transported here, and this sound will play. The strange bottle will not inflict the damage or play the sound, because it sends the player to the pocket dimension directly, as opposed to calling this function. While inside the pocket dimension, the camera's roll will be tilted to a degree decided by a global timer that constantly runs even if the game is paused. So if you pause the game, you can see the camera rotation jump ahead to where it would be the moment you unpause. Kinda interesting. Your stamina is also fully depleted to 0 anytime you try moving. Even though it appears to regenerate if you stand still, it will snap to 0 the moment you press a movement key. Your movement speed will also take a hit when you're in this place, even more so as you grow more and more injured, since your injuries will be increasing by 0.0036 per second for as long as you're in the pocket dimension. The longer you stay, the more injured you'll be, thus the slower you'll move and the faster you'll bleed. Assuming you were at full health when being caught by 106 or falling into the sinkhole, it will take you 2 minutes and 23 seconds to start bleeding. If you got here using the strange bottle, it'll take twice as long to start bleeding due to not taking the 0.5 damage at the start. Also, every time you blink, if the event state timer is greater than 600 and a 1 in 30 chance succeeds, you'll see a flash of 106's face along with a blood drip sound effect. I'd like to take a moment to appreciate the beautiful if-statement staircase the developers created in the process of implementing the scare. Anyway, by going down one of the halls in the starting area, you'll get a chance to explore one of the Pocket Dimension's 8 other areas. This 4-way corridor, the 2 flying stone bridges, the prison room, the fake escape room, the exit tunnel, the pillar room, the throne room, and the trench. We'll cover these areas one at a time. For now, let's go into more detail on the starting room. SCP-106 is actually in this room with you. He walks in circles through each of the hallways, though for whatever reason he walks along the ceiling upside down. If you get within 0.3 meters of him, he'll snap out of being idle and give chase. But this is unlikely to happen due to the fact that the player's collision box is placed quite low down. Nevertheless, 106 is still a threat in this room, because if you spend longer than 65 seconds in this room, a 1 in 800 chance is rolled per frame to play this sound effect and make 106 begin emerging somewhere, where he will then give chase. This chase also extends to other areas of the Pocket Dimension, so you do not want to linger in this starting room. You may also notice that the sizes of the doorways will instantly snap to a certain position when 106 activates, and this is because the same timer that's used to create this encounter is also responsible for controlling the size of the doorways, and 106 activating in this room will reset this timer to a specific value, which causes the doorways to do this weird jump. One final note about this room is that one of the hallways contains a scorched note with the code to Dr. Maynard's office on it. Now, here's where I would love to give you the best advice for how to navigate the Pocket Dimension in the safest and most optimal way possible, but sadly, where you go upon walking down one of these hallways is purely random. It doesn't even matter which hallway you choose. All the game is looking for is that you've moved far enough away from the center of the room. Oh well, let's see what all can happen once this is done. When the player's gone far enough, they'll be forced to blink, and then one of many possibilities can occur. Firstly, there is a 16% chance that they are teleported to the hallway opposite the one they were in, facing the center of the room. 106 will laugh and a large block will be placed behind the player, forcing them to go out and choose a different hallway. Next, there's a 24% chance that the player is teleported to the 4-way corridor, an 8% chance they're teleported back to the center of the starting room as if they haven't gone anywhere, a 12% chance they're taken to the exit tunnel, a 16% chance that they're given an early escape, a 12% chance they're taken to the pillar room, and finally a 12% chance of being taken to the fake escape room. To clarify, this isn't a list of RNG calls being run one after the other. The game will only choose one of these possibilities, and the aforementioned chances are the probability of that outcome being chosen. The two that just keep you in the starting room are self-explanatory, so let's start with the early escape. If this outcome is chosen, the player will be released from the Pocket Dimension to the first instance of the tunnel room on the map. On a randomly generated map, this will be the instance closest to the bottom right corner of the facility. On a custom map, it'll be the one closest to the top left corner. While getting this lucky escape can be a good thing, 106's spawn timer is set to 250, meaning he will spawn again and give chase right afterwards. He clearly thinks you got away too easily. If you're sent to the pillar room, you'll have to climb down this tower and reach this hole, which will send you back to the starting room. Do it quickly, however, since 106 is in this room and will attack you if you take too long. He starts on one of these distant towers, floating upside down because I guess they never correct his rotation from the starting room, and will roll a 1 in 750 chance each frame to advance one tower closer to the player, which is indicated by a forced blink and this sound effect. After advancing 3 times, he will appear next to you and give chase. Since he actually does float up or down to match your Y position while in the Pocket Dimension, escaping him here will be nigh impossible. If you ever get this room while 106 isn't recontained, good luck, you'll need it. If the player is sent to the fake escape room, the camera tilting and movement speed effects will be disabled while inside this zone of the Pocket Dimension, in order to hide the fact that you haven't gotten away. Though interestingly, D9341's breathing will still be disabled, as it is for the rest of the Pocket Dimension. Once you open either of the doors, this sound effect plays, and your only option left is to walk outside and drop down to either the throne room or one of the stone bridges. You should always choose the stone bridge if you can help it. Now that we're down here, the four-way corridor connects the two stone bridges, the prison room, and the throne room together. The prison room has nothing special in it, it'll just play the sound of someone wheezing on a loop. The stone bridges both have a large stone flying around them in a figure-8 pattern. Should the player come into contact with one of the stones, they'll be killed. This kill is done by setting the kill timer value directly, which results in the screen turning black instantly, and the kill also ignoring God mode if it's enabled. For some context, most player deaths are caused by the game calling the kill function, which sets up the falling animation and blur effect, as well as voiding the death if God mode is enabled. Since these rocks instead set the kill timer value directly, which gets the job done, they ignore God mode and are thus one of the most powerful forces in the game. Also, both being hit by the stones and falling into the void in this area will give unique death messages. Anyway, if the player times their movements well and survives the bridge crossing, falling into the hole at the end will release them from the pocket dimension to the outside of 106's own chamber. 106's spawn timer is also reset to 2.3 minutes. In earlier versions, this used to put you on the bridge inside the chamber, but when they raised the keycard requirement to a level 4, they decided to move the escape point to right outside the door, so that you can't skip past it. Then there's the throne room. Upon stepping far enough in, the doorway the player entered from will be sealed shut, trapping them inside. 106 will be in here perched on a giant throne, and the player's vision will be drawn toward him. This also slightly drains the player's sanity, but the effect is barely noticeable and inconsequential. The player's injuries damage over time also increases to 0.021 per second while they're in this room. After enough time passes, 106 will command the player to kneel. The text "kneel" will also appear in the player's vision whenever they blink after this happens, and its appearance is accompanied by a tiny piece of this lovely sound effect. When the player next crouches, whether voluntary or not, they will be instantly teleported to the trench. This sets their injuries decay back to the normal rate, but there's now a much larger problem on their hands. The trench plays a special separate background ambience from the rest of the pocket dimension, and puts the player up against this giant bird known as the plane. When the plane flies overhead and the player isn't under these wooden boards, the plane's giant red eye will open and the player's vision will be drawn to it. The plane will then inflict damage to the player's injuries each tick, and the damage is calculated by this formula: 8 minus the plane's distance from the player in meters times 0.0003. Basically, the rate of damage the player takes increases the closer the plane is overhead. As I mentioned in the health system video, looking away from the plane does not increase the damage you take. So it's actually best to not move the camera, that way you can keep moving forward and make progress more consistently. If the player manages to reach the end of the trench, this hole will teleport them to the exit tunnel. Speaking of the exit tunnel, this is our final room to talk about. You just walk into the dark void ahead for a while, and then you'll be released from the pocket dimension into this storage room somewhere in the heavy containment zone, and 106's spawn timer is reset to 2.3 minutes. The game will also play this exit sound effect and place a 106 sludge decal on the ceiling to show where you exited from. I'm only bringing this up now because this is the only escape route that does this for some reason. The other two routes play no escape sound, nor do they put a decal on the ceiling. Strange. When you escape the pocket dimension through any of the three routes, you'll be awarded an achievement, and the lockdown on the light to heavy containment checkpoints will be lifted if it isn't already. Since all three escape routes take you somewhere in heavy containment, the game does this to make sure you don't get trapped in there, losing access to 914 or one of the other important places in the light containment zone. The final thing to cover with the pocket dimension is what happens when 106 is recontained. While you may expect him to appear considering it's his home and all, the encounters in the starting room and the pillar room are actually disabled. Sort of. The game will still run the timers and mechanics for his encounters, and even play the sound effects when it's supposed to, but 106 himself will never be there. This allows you to take as much time as you need to get out of the pillar room, which is much appreciated. However, 106 will still be perched on his throne in the throne room, even if he's recontained. The reason why is because that's not actually 106 up there. That's just the glowing eye texture hovering at the top of his throne. Since 106's actual entity is not involved in the Throne Room's event, it's still able to run as normal. Very weird. For one last thing, here's a zoom out of the entire pocket dimension, with the camera fog mostly cleared. And that is everything notable to cover with SCP-106 and his pocket dimension. At least, that's what I want to say. But there's one glaring issue I haven't talked about yet. How exactly does 106 walk through walls? The answer must lie within the game's collision detection, so let's see how that's handled. Entities in Blitz 3D can be assigned a collision type, the exact name being set by the developer. Then upon startup, you can use this collisions function to define which two collision types should collide, and what should happen when they do. Right here, we're telling the game that entities with the collision type hit player, which is what most NPCs use, should collide with entities that have the collision type hit map, which is what the walls and furniture in the facility use. And when the hit player entity collides with the hit map entity, they should slide along the entity if there's room to do so, which SCP-173 demonstrates perfectly. When the NPCs are created, they're given a collision box around their feet, which is assigned the type hit player, and of course, all the room meshes and whatnot are given the hit map type. With all this set up, Blitz 3D takes it from there. Most of the collision detection in Containment Breach is handled by Blitz 3D itself. At least, this is my best guess. It's possible I'm missing something. Since SCP-106 clearly doesn't collide with walls, this naturally means that his collision box is given a different type, so it doesn't align with the rules established on startup. It isn't? Wait, what? 106's collision box is indeed given the hit player collision type, and this radius value is the same as the one given to facility guards and the nine-tailed fox, so that doesn't affect anything. So, 106 should be colliding with walls, but he doesn't! What the fuck is going on? Truthfully, I don't know. I'm guessing that it's some kind of obscure trick with Blitz 3D to disable collision for certain entities, or maybe it's something to do with these reset entity calls and where they're placed in the code. But I am really not sure why 106 is allowed to walk through walls when all other NPCs aren't, for the most part. I will try to look into it for maybe a future video, but this video has taken long enough to release as is, so my explanation for this is currently a shrug. If anyone has an idea for how this is possible, let me know down below. For one last 106 fact before we wrap up, I can tell you about an interesting exploit involving 106. Normally, when the player is killed, they are not allowed to move during the falling animation, which makes sense. However, the falling animation for 106 capturing you does not apply the same restriction, and the player is still allowed to move while it plays. There's also nothing stopping them from saving the game and loading it, which will cancel the animation entirely and spawn the player upright. The fall timer is reset and no longer running, so the player just escaped being sent to the pocket dimension. Indeed, fall timer is not only never saved to the save file, but it's also reset to 0 upon either quick loading or quitting to the main menu. So if you ever get caught by 106, you can press a movement key to move away, save the game and quick load, and you're fine! You've outsmarted one of the smartest SCPs in the game. You will also remain at full health, because the 0.5 damage from being captured by 106 only applies upon the teleport to the pocket dimension, which we just cancelled. But it gets even better. During the fall animation, the player's collision detection is disabled. Again, I don't know how, it just is. This means that you can walk through walls in the brief window of time that you're falling over, and use this to clip out of bounds or through anything that blocks your path. Do remember that 106 will be right next to you when you reload, but as long as you start running away from him instantly, you should be good to go. A quick thank you to SCP-Wyatt for covering this exploit in this video of his. With that, we've reached the end of everything I had to say about this old coot. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something new. For what's coming up next in the Containment Breach videos, I'll probably keep going with enemy behaviors for now, though which one I should do next I haven't decided on yet. Either 096 or 049 are most likely. As for non-Containment Breach videos, there are 3 other technical explanation type videos I've been wanting to make for a little while now, and I think my next video will be one of those. There's still much work that needs to be done for that though. In any case, I thank you very much for watching if you did, and as always, I will see you all in the future.